Can everyone hear me? Good afternoon to those of you who are on the West Coast, and good evening to those of you who are not on the West Coast, like myself. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Pam Cottrell, and I am the Director of Annual Giving and Alumni Engagement here at Golden Gate University. Welcome, and thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us this evening. This is the first in what we hope to be quarterly series of webinars featuring the renowned faculty of Golden Gate University. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge members of the university advancement staff and all other faculty and staff of Golden Gate that are present today. So you can just wave your hands. I especially would like to thank Brooke Wally, who is our annual giving and alumni engagement coordinator and a student of Dr. Zadeh. Brooke has been so inspired and excited about what she has learned in Dr. Zadeh's class. She insisted that we have him as our first speaker, and after his presentation, you'll see why. There are over 130 alumni registered for this webinar, and so we're asking that all questions be placed in the chat. We're going to have a question and answer period, and Brooke will be monitoring the chat, and so we would have questions at that time. Today's presentation is entitled Promise and Perils of Artificial Intelligence. Our presenter, Dr. Siamak Zadeh, has been teaching at Golden Gate University since 2011. He is currently an associate professor and data scientist and director of undergraduate programs and data analytics for the Geno School of Business. As you can see, he wears many hats. He has over 30 years of academic and IT industry experience. He has worked in a variety of organizations such as IBM Research and Oracle, developing business strategies and product specifications for the use and application of digital transformation and analytics to business problems and challenges. He is the author of numerous articles on how generative AI is used in our everyday life. In fact, on the onset of COVID-19, he published The Role and Utility of Big Data and Artificial Intelligence in the Coronavirus Pandemic Tracking and Containment, which reviewed the added value of data to manage the public health crisis. Without further ado, I present Dr. Siamak Zadeh. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam, and good afternoon, good evening to our audience, and welcome to, as my colleague Pam mentioned, the first, hopefully, to be in many of these conversations with our broad community and our alumni. Let me preface my talk by mentioning that this is going to be a high-level overview of the artificial intelligence and its benefits and its challenges that hopefully in future we will have more of these conversations, allow us to do more deep dive. So without any further ado, let's start moving to my presentation, which are going to be my talking points. I will cover the very high-level overview of what AI as it relates to Industrial Revolution 4.0 and how the changes it brings. I will then review some of the business benefits and business examples, but also I want to focus on, as the title implies, the challenges and perils of AI as well. So let's start with a very high-level, simple definition of artificial intelligence. And as most of you probably are following this space, we are now in a phase that this definition has evolved significantly. Currently, most computer scientists and data scientists define artificial intelligence as the study and design of intelligent agents, which, if you're not familiar with that term, we'll come back to it later on, more of, how to be able to replicate some of the intelligent activities that human beings are doing. But this definition most likely will change as well, as AI has been around for the past almost 60 years, and many definition of it has changed and evolved and continues to evolve. Currently, AI is considered to be an umbrella for many activities that fall under the broad category of artificial intelligence. Specifically, machine learning over the past decade or so has gained significant popularity as basically it is the automation of a lot of our simple tasks. Further to development of machine learning, we moved to deep learning, and that started using some more sophisticated algorithms and advanced mathematics and statistics for that. Natural language processing, automated speech recognition are also considered as part of the broad umbrella of artificial intelligence. But what has made this space more exciting recently is the emergence of this latest category of generative AI or generative artificial intelligence based on a new foundation, which is generally considered to be the large language models. We're going to be looking at some of these things here or examples. So whenever you hear AI, basically depends on the application, depends on the context. Some of these subsets and subtasks may be used, and they still all referring to it as artificial intelligence. Now, as this technology is advancing rapidly, there are probably going to be a lot more of these type of activities coming in the future, but mostly would be probably in the advancement of this latest and greatest known as generative AI. So overall, if you look at the foundations of the broad category of AI really is as intersection of many disciplines, from statistics, linguistics, cognitive science, mathematics, information system. So a lot of these businesses, as well as disciplines, as well as these advanced science and other type of academic activities are converging into a broad category, which is they comprise the foundation or the root of the AI. But more importantly, the focus is now moving into the applications. And as we're going to look at the benefits of the AI, the applications is far-reaching across every socioeconomic activities in our society and every business. Pretty soon, AI is going to evolve to the point that we may not actually know the root foundations of the AI. We're going to see it more as a black box and start using it without really knowing what has gone into building up such a foundation. It's very similar to the medical practices that many physicians who use MRI or magnetic resonance imaging may not even know the physics behind MRI, the quantum physics behind MRI, but it start applying it to, for their clinical use. And that's pretty much is very similar to advancement of AI, that we're going to reach a point that AI is used in everything we do, from gaming, from education, from augmented reality, and any other business, without us really having, full knowledge, understanding of the what is contributing to this advancement of it too. So this is where it's a lot of excitement is happening. Scientists, researchers are going to be focused on those functionalities listed in the foundation, but most of us are going to really be focusing on the use of it. Another thing's happening that is making this advancement possible is the increase in the variety, the volume, and velocity of data known, the category known as big data. Basically, the data-driven phase of our digital transformation with the addition advancement of AI is really at the core of this new phase, the fourth industrial revolution. And we're going to see, as a result of the convergence of this and other trends that I'm going to cover, all leading to innovation, change, transformation beyond just digitization as it happened during the Industrial Revolution 3.0. We're really going to see very, very different and exciting set of changes and advancement. The other area that is converging and fueling advancement of AI is the broad category known as the Internet of Things, the IoT, as you are probably using and applying and leveraging many of our items that it's coming to consumer hands are beginning to become known as a smartphone, smart appliances. And pretty soon we're going to see from a smart appliance to smart homes to smart cities to smart everything as sensors are being deployed across every activity we are doing in our society, and data is being generated beyond anything we have generated in the past. And the convergence of IoT, the generation of data, with the addition of the intelligence that AI brings to the picture, it is really enabling this very rapid and fast pace of advancement and innovation. As a result, the IoT and AI are changing everything we do. Most of us probably are using our smartphones and all the various features comes with it, from our personal assistant Siri. Soon we're going to see an AI-based version of Siri or other personal assistant, to at home, to a smart TV, to smart appliances, to smart cities, to the point that futurists are looking at the smart world of the Internet of Things across every part of society, our towns, our cities, our states, our country, to be able to have access to information in real time, whether it's related to air pollution, whether it's related to climate changes, whether it's related to any hazardous, events that may cause, or just monitoring traffic or monitoring other activities, that we are going to see a convergence of applications of sensor-based Internet of Things with intelligence built into them. And one of the things that it's actually going to be in next phase of this excitement is the concept known pushing the artificial intelligence to the edge, with so many consumer devices that is already out, including just the smartphones and other type of computer smart devices. This is gonna The intelligence is gonna move to that point, which is known as artificial intelligence at the edge, and then combine and converge with the access and aggregation of repositories of data. We're going to see a lot of interesting advancement, innovation in how we actually conduct our business or societal activities across every socioeconomic duties. But the portion of AI, as I alluded to earlier, that has generated significant excitement and it's become the buzz of town, particularly in the Bay Area, as the Bay Area is now becoming known as the new incubator of generative AI. And that's where the change is becoming a lot more pronounced and a lot more interesting. All AI activities in the past, prior to generative AI, were focused on automation of simple tasks. Machine learning, deep learnings were predominantly applied to them, or use of natural language processing to review text, summarize them, and other activities, or do automated speech recognition. What has changed with generative AI is now we're in a phase that content is created, which is really the next quantum leap of all previous AI activities. And the content could be text, content could be images, video, audio, and every possible type of content creation that we can imagine. And this is just starting out. When the first publicly available Gen AI platform from OpenAI, known as ChatGPT, came to existence and public announcement in late 2022, within weeks and months of it, it had millions of subscribers. And since then, we've had hundreds of startups, all focused on various application generative AI across the board. And this is just the beginning. We're just entering this phase. And ChatGPT from OpenAI is just one platform, not to mention that every major IT enterprise and software companies have announced their version of similar type of platforms Google has announced their platform known as Gemini. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, has announced their Llama, and they're planning to make some of these platforms open source, available to the public to build various layers and applications on top of it. And one of the biggest debate in this aspect at this stage is that should the whole concept of open source large language models and ChatGPT type platforms be the dominant and prevalent mode of generative AI utility and usage, or rather some more proprietary. And that's going to be the debate probably in the next few years between various companies whose interest is to have a proprietary platform versus others who promote the open source. It reminds me of, if you guys have gone through the early phases of the Industrial Revolution 3.0 and the early phases of internet, same conversation was happening about 30, 40 years ago. The operating systems, some believed had to be proprietary, some believed had to be open source, such as Unix and later on as Linux. Same concept is now being discussed at the very higher level in terms of these foundation models, large language models, all that. But nevertheless, regardless of how this discourse evolves, there's significant changes already happening that is transforming the businesses who are already on road to digitization, digital transformation entirely into new area. And we're going to see that what are the examples of those things that are going to happen. So that's why, when people compare the latest industrial revolution and AI revolution compared to the industrial revolution 1.0, if the industrial revolution 1.0 really involved replacing and augmenting human physical power with machine powers, this is really now in the phase that, now whether the word replace is a correct term or not, it's debatable, but certainly augmenting our cognitive power. AI is emerging currently as the ultimate collaboration between man and machine to enhance and augment our cognitive power, our brain power with machine power. At the same time that this may be very promising, as we're going to see later on when we talked about the perils of artificial intelligence, it is debatable that whether this would be ultimately for the good of society or not, as you, I'm sure, followed all the discourse that is happening across our nation and globally. Some are very concerned with AI replacing our brain power and replacing human being, including replacing jobs, displacing jobs, and some people this augmenting and empowering and enhancing it. And that's why this type of conversation, it's very timely. We're hoping that by engaging the audience here, we can really have a very engaged audience of understanding the promises and perils of AI. But in the business, this transformation that started many years ago through business intelligence, through data science, and transformation of the decision making from art to science is going to continue and is going to advance rapidly. Some of those processes that was done manually by human beings will probably get automated as a result of some of these artificial intelligence activities, whether it's machine learning, deep learning, and now with generative AI. And with data generated from the sensor-based environment, from Internet of Things, we're going to be in a very data-driven, intelligence-based decision-making process across all our activities, all our businesses, whether for-profit, non-profit, or social, activities too. And that's where the power and promise of AI comes in. At the same time, its challenges. So if I summarize the evolution of how AI and overall a data-driven business intelligence and decision support system has evolved to be fully automated, we are really now at the very, very automated phase of this evolution. Simple tasks, repeatable tasks will most likely get automated. And the question for us is going to be that what would be the role for human being in this rapidly automated world, and how would we use and harness this power for our own overall benefit. In terms of the business opportunities, of course, all businesses are very excited. There are various forecasts and how this would impact our economy. There are talks about this adding trillions of dollars in terms of economic value. The Bay Area has already benefited over the past year and a half, since November of 2022, by the infusion of significant venture capital into startups. Some reports have it that in 10, $15 billion have been infused. A lot of them are in Bay Area, San Francisco based. So this has become actually a very promising development for San Francisco and Bay Area in general, where post-COVID, a lot of people were concerned that the city is losing its attraction for these type of technological companies. And now with the emergence of so many of these startups replacing the changes that's happening in the previous IT activities, there is a very positive prospects both for the nation, for the Bay Area, and for the city of San Francisco in general. And we're going to see how this is going to play out. This is at the very early stage of the development. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to see how this will really reflect. A lot of surveys from businesses, how they see the deployment and utilization of generative AI. This is just one example I pulled out from these surveys, that how people view the value proposition of generative AI. And these are the examples of the areas of application of it. The difference between generative AI adoption and its use compared to previous inventions and technological innovation is the pace. If from the invention of the internet, it took many years before we really led a revolution into what eventually became e-commerce. This time, things are happening in a matter of months. So this is what is, basically are causing a lot of, raised eyebrows, that how quickly this latest development, generative AI, is impacting our activities, businesses, and the society as a large. The challenge to this rapid advancement, adoption, is that we have not really put all the safety rails and guardrails in place for its use adoption. And we're going to get to that more when we talk about the perils of AI. So with that little bit of background about where AI is and where it's leading to, let's look at the very high level, just the benefits and examples of it. Depending on the time, I may not be able to go through every industry that I've selected here, and these are only few examples of the industries that I have. I'm probably focused mostly on healthcare and maybe law, the legal field, and as an example of how it's changing it too. So let's look at what are some of the key benefits of AI. The early promise of AI was automation and efficiency. And if you look at some of the examples listed here, from manufacturing to retails, the whole process of automating basic procedures, basic operations, and basic tasks has been the immediate use of any data-driven analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, including robotics. We're going to see more convergence of advanced robotics with an AI focused. And we're going to be deploying this more in the many areas, especially manufacturing, that could provide hazard to human beings. Automation, robotics is generally a very good approach for a type of manufacturing that otherwise could be potentially hazardous to human being. Retail has been benefit. We already moved through the process known as Amazonification of the retails and automation of our online ordering, online purchase, with AI providing the intelligence behind in terms of the purchasing behavior of the buyers and consumers. In finance, healthcare, and many industries, we are now moving in a fully data-driven, automated decision-making process. Finance has been using this for quite a while. In fact, a portion of the financial markets, particularly the investment side of the finance, have been using the concept of quantitative analysis for a number of years. Now they're basically moving it in leveraging an automated version, an AI-based version of those. And that's why for some areas in this field, AI was very popular in terms of adoption, particularly for fraud detection. If now that we moved into fully online and digital, a transaction-based space, identifying unauthorized transaction or fraud is beyond any human capabilities. So one area that AI has significantly impacted is on fraud detection. And we're going to see more examples for the healthcare, because healthcare I want to really focus because I think that's a space that we really could see value for AI. Enhancing customer experience is another benefit that it could see it across. We're moving into a robotic based, a voice activated, artificial intelligence based customer service. And now for some people who are more interested in human interaction, this has been also frustrating, but the scalability of these automated voice activated call centers is the promise that AI brings across many industries. Innovation and new capabilities, whether we're looking at self-driving cars or in entertainment, as we're going to see, that's in a field, and that's a space that content is going to be generated significantly now by AI in entertainment. Both are going to be additional benefits in innovating both the entertainment and any other content base, whether it's a marketing, whether it's as we're going to see a law that requires generation and creation of content, that AI is going to play a significant role. Ultimately, business is always looking for improving their operations, process optimization, cost reduction is one of the key objectives of any business. And we're going to see that AI will play a significant role in that space. And again, just like any other field, AI and automation is going to help with the scalability. And that's where the benefit will be reached to the mainstream and not just certain high-level, very data-driven businesses. Safety and risk management. Again, as we're going to see example later on, AI can monitor all various input from the various type of works and utilities of the various appliances used to make sure we have a good understanding of the risk involved and predict any hazards to either do a hazard mitigation, risk mitigation, and overall improve the safety, especially in industries such as chemical industries. And from the monitoring of our environments and our conservation purposes, hopefully it's going to play a significant role. That is already globally, people are looking at the use of AI and sensors for better management of our habitats and for doing both environmental conservation and apply it to better prediction of our climate and climate science and climate changes. So let me now do a little bit deeper dive in an example of industry that already, especially post-COVID, is beginning to adopt AI, and we've seen significant value. Healthcare is one of the industries, one of the spaces that they're always under-resourced in terms of shortage of nurses, shortage of clinicians, and other resources needed. And whenever a pandemic hits, as we went experience through the COVID pandemic over the past 3-4 years, that's where augmentation of our healthcare resources becomes very important. for the general patients and families and for caretaking, already significant introduction of AI through various devices and edge devices have been introduced. We're going to see some example of these devices and wearables later on that already have built-in intelligence to gather data, to monitor the health of individuals, particularly for chronic disease management. If you follow the healthcare space, healthcare comprises approximately 20% of GDP. It's one of the largest sector of our GDP. And if you look at what type of diseases comprise bulk of that cost, three chronic diseases, diabetics, cardio, and COPD, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, comprise nearly 50% of the total cost of our healthcare. So management of these diseases for people who have them through these various wearable devices for preventive purposes, it becomes essential because the cost of any acute center, such as emergency rooms, is formidable. And unfortunately, right now, our healthcare is primarily used for acute purposes, and that's why such a high cost in prevention is not the main focus. And with the introduction of these smart devices and intelligence that AI would offer, combine AI and devices and AI at the edge, we should be able to move into more of a better care, preventive care, and reduction of this burgeoning healthcare costs of societies. One key area actually during the COVID that became very prominent of the role of AI was on monitoring the emotional and behavioral health. During COVID, as most academic institutions, schools were closed, particularly for a very sensitive age among the teenagers from age 13 to 19. The closure of schools exacerbated their isolations. They were not even able to meet with their therapists or their care providers. But because they had access to these remote devices, and most of them at that age being part of the digital native, communicate via text, the behavior and care providers and therapists were able to leverage advancement in AI or technology to do what is referred to as mood analysis. This was something that actually was extensively used in other sectors, other markets, such as for consumer sentiment analysis. But the behavior care providers and therapists started looking at similar type technology to detect and do particularly early detection of the changes in the condition of these young, sensitive individuals for prevention purposes and make sure that they're not declining into a worse situation and building up suicidal tendencies. So it's very popular now. And since COVID, telemedicine and this type of behavioral health services has expanded significantly. On the clinical side, AI and automation has been actually applied for many years to do detection and diagnostics. In fact, most tests such as X-ray, MRI, CAT scan, and other type of digital tests are first read by computer algorithms through what is now generally referred to as computer-aided detection and diagnostics before a radiologist or clinician actually views them. So it's augmenting and empowering clinicians, radiologists for better detection of these type of diseases that requires the application of such digital tests. It's used for a surgical procedure to do what's called minimal intrusion surgical procedures. So robotics, machine learning, AI are entering our clinical and surgical spaces to improve and augment the physicians and clinicians' capabilities. And we are eventually moving, as with the expansion of the various genomics activities and mapping of the DNAs, into more of a precision medicine and personalized medicine, combining with the data that is coming out of the all this various DNA mapping happening, with a better understanding and better intelligence that artificial intelligence provides. Already, my colleague, when introduced me, is that when COVID first started, I looked at try to do a research on the role utility of big data and AI in tracking and managing our various infectious diseases. And this last pandemic was the biggest that I had experienced in my lifetime. Became a very interesting topic for me, that do we have an infrastructure in place that we could actually gather data and add intelligence to it for better tracking, better management, and understanding the transmission rate various among pathogens. So in fact, post the Spanish flu many years ago, the World Health Organization had put in place an infrastructure for gathering data globally for all infectious diseases, particularly influenza. And then they applied the same infrastructure to gather that. That's why when early in December 2019, symptoms of a virus flu-like disease was emerging, already they had access data and intelligence and identified it, that it was a corona-based pandemic that was emerging and is spreading very rapidly. Now, there was not a uniformity of the decision making around it, because unfortunately, whenever health coverage such as pandemic diseases reach a global stage, you are at the mercy of various government and administration in terms of what they do with that data, which is a different story. I won't get into it. So, but one of the really promising areas that AI, through these collection of data, can really help in better management is in pandemic, because it can really alert us in a very timely fashion. It can fully understand various scenario about its transmission rates and prevent. And unfortunately, we should have applied that a lot more than we did, at the very early onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in late 2019, early 2020. These are some examples of these smart devices that, with the intelligence built into them, could really provide significant value. This is a helmet that it has sensors, and with intelligence and connectivity, it has the care providers. Brain damage and brain injury is one of the key critical and acute conditions that, if timely response is not provided, it could lead to very unfortunate situations. So having such a smart sensor base with intelligence and connectivity could provide a very detailed information to the first responders, and even remotely possibly suggest for whoever is able to provide help to the individual who's been in an accident, and to prevent the type of conditions that could lead to concussion or further brain injuries and hemorrhaging that it may be irreversible. As I mentioned, smart devices for a variety of chronic diseases, in this case, blood pressure, to monitor blood pressure based on the conditions, with the connectivity again to the care providers, to alert the patient, alert the care managers and caregivers, again, from reaching the acute condition requiring emergency room response for the individuals. For elderlies, as our population is getting older, these type of wearables, whatever the device happens to be, with additional intelligence that's being built into it, not only can collect vital signs, but also these days, a lot of these devices with the motion detector can detect falls, which is apparently one of the largest cause of injuries and subsequent, acute conditions for elderly people, that too. So these are just a few examples that how healthcare across the consumers, as well as in the clinical setting, is already adopting, benefiting from them to, again, empower clinicians care providers and augment their services and care providers. I've already alluded to the financial industry, how financial industry, particularly for fraud detection, are using it. I'm not going to spend much time because I want to leave some time for the perils of it. So let me skip that. Most of you, if you're in the Bay Area, have probably seen Waymo or Cruise of these self-driving automatic vehicles. So again, this is another key area that transportation will be innovated through these type of self-driving autonomous vehicles. Entertainment industry actually is a key area that, because it involves video generation, content generation, text generation, will go through significant transformation, innovation as well. In fact, if you recall, when the Hollywood writers had a strike, one of the key concerns they had was to make sure they have a provision in the new contract that the studios would not use Gen AI to replace them. So this is an area that this industry is going to go through significant changes as they adopt artificial, particularly generative AI. If this is area that generative AI initially has a lot of promises and change. Legal, field of legal is another area that already significant number of the startups that I've come across are focusing now on application of generative AI to law. Simple legal tasks can be automated, whether it's a draft of a certain briefs or a contract or commercial contract or other type of documents, summarization of documents for auditing. All those activities can now be automated. Now, one of the key challenges with this industry, especially law, would be that there's not a clear idea about how to utilize it, and there's no policy. As we're going to find out, these policies are generally behind in terms of the technological advancement. And sometimes it takes actually many years before the policymakers have actually clear understanding of how this new advancement is changing their practices and how to basically establish a set of guardrails to protect everyone that is going to be impacted by it. And now that brings us, with a little time I have, on the challenges and perils of AI. Well, AI definitely is not a panacea for all our human problems and societal challenges. One of the key concern and limitation of initial is that it will definitely impact our physical connection. There are going to be a lot of activities that we may be interfacing from an AI infused robotics, from customer call center to others. And this limitation or lack of human touch, especially for some sectors of society, probably would be very frustrating and challenging. There are going to be some areas that people could lead to rely too much on AI. We're hoping that it's at least the fields such as the medical field or legal field are not the ones you don't want to really have, for instance, especially in some parts of law that are under-resourced, like public defenders, to augment their resources and their support of their clients through just generative AI and abdicate their own responsibilities to such a platform. That's why we really need guardrails and ethical consideration when it comes to application of it. Now, some of these changes, challenges could change with time as the technology advances, as our understanding and knowledge of AI improves, and as we collectively, through public discourse, come up with suggestions for guardrails, ethical consideration of these use. Now, another key concern right now among many sectors is that, can AI displace jobs? Well, short answer is unfortunately yes. As it happened during Industrial Revolution 1.0, a tractor, could do the work of probably 100 farmers. So as machinery was being applied to basic tasks such as agriculture or manufacturing, it did displace jobs, and it's continued to do so. The challenge is not that AI has any malice or malfeasance trying to replace human being. It's just we go through a transition that automation would displace jobs, And it really becomes, important on society to provide safety measures when such displacements happen. And there are individuals, some sectors that definitely would get caught into that transition of losing their jobs, especially if those jobs are simple, repetitive tasks and simple data analysis and simple content creation, as we will come to rely a lot more on machine for these activities. Because AI is relying on data, it's very important to have a reliable data, and we have to basically do a assurance and quality assurance of data that what is fed into these emerging black box platforms. Some of these large language models, foundational models, even their creators of them, they're not sure how they function. And that's very concerning. So that's why we definitely need to really have a good sense of the information that is being fed into them. The typical saying in the street is that the best algorithm had doesn't matter, trash in, trash out. We want to make sure that the data that is being fed into these content that's going to be generated by these artificial intelligence platforms, particularly the generative AI, the large language models and foundation models, are at least are being fed with good data, good quality data. In any business practice, there's always uncertain risk. The challenge with AI, as we automate these things here, that this could exacerbate such risk. So we definitely need to enhance our risk mitigation and our data governance across every activity to prevent the enhancement and increase of this risk in every activity we're doing. Security is already in digital world has become a challenge. Already with the advent of internet and open access to a lot of digital resources, we are at the mercy of hackers, scammers, and other type of digital at an individual level. And as a society now, cybersecurity has become one of the most paramount digital technology and cyber technology in general, and especially with the enhancement of those with AI. The biggest concern, for society as individual level is our data privacy. As the social media and sensor-based information is proliferating and access to such information is becoming widely available, not having safety guards in terms of preventing misuse or abuse of our personal private data becomes very crucial. United States particularly is a little bit behind on not having a national data privacy regulation compared to Europeans, which many years ago passed what is known as GDPR, the General Private Data Regulation, Privacy Data Regulation, which means most social media platforms, you are opted out by default from allowing them to use your personal information unless you opt in, versus in the US, it's just the reverse. So that is very concerned. And if anything, AI would exacerbate that concern. But the other important information that AI has the potential to exacerbate is bias. AI or data or big data is a reflection of what is the common practice in society. If there are practices that are built on bias, if there's inequity among our various segments of society, whether it's health inequity, education inequity, unfortunately, AI and further automation has the possibility of exacerbating them. data that is built has built-in bias in it, fed into the best large language model or any foundation model, any AI algorithm will not address the bias built into that data. So this is one of the major issue that as AI advances rapidly and use of existing data, which possibly contains biases in our practice, whether it's a gender bias, whether it's a race bias, ethnic bias, all that could proliferate through this rapid evolution of artificial intelligence and exacerbate that. So that's where we definitely need ethical consideration of AI. We need guardrails, safety rails, and policies to really, allow people to understand if such practices exist, how it will be, changed or addressed by this rapid advancement of AI. And lastly, but not the least, is AI, unfortunately, will exacerbate also the digital divide. The Industrial Revolution 3.0 or digital revolution that has started 30, 40, 50 years ago already had created a digital divide. The rapid pace of advancement of artificial intelligence has the risk of exacerbating and broadening and deepening this digital divide. The inequities in access to digital knowledge as we're moving into a knowledge-based worker and digital worker, environment will be increased. The whatever is the gulf between those digital haves and digital that do not have will get widened initially because the artificial intelligence will enhance. If anything, it really indicated this disparity, especially the health inequities was during a pandemic last coronavirus and COVID pandemic, that it really exacerbated the health inequity among various communities. Despite the fact the virus itself has no agenda, how it impacts different genders or different communities, the results of years of inequities have basically, haunted those populations. That's why the rate of, getting infected, the death rates, and other, bad conditions among various groups increased and was not uniform across during the COVID. And the artificial intelligence has that lack. So I'm going to stop here too. Hopefully, I left enough time for my colleague to gather some of the questions. As I mentioned, there's a lot to be talked about on this topic. Hopefully, that just brought a very initial conversation. And let me pass it on to my colleague, Brooke, or others to see if there's any question that I can address in the remaining time.
Sure. I just want to address a couple of the questions that have come out in the chat. So Ivan wants to know, we've used NLP over the years, decades, specifically in IVRs. Shouldn't we have a convergence in this space over the years?
I heard NLP, but the rest of it I did not hear that. So let me actually, raise my volume to see if I can understand a little bit better. So I did not quite hear the question, Brooke.
Sure. Let me say it again. We've used NLP over the years / decades, specifically in IVRs. Shouldn't we have a convergence in this space over the years?
It should be. Answer should be yes. I think, as clearly the question is asking that some of the aspects of the artificial intelligence, such as natural language processing, has been used for years. In fact, generative artificial intelligence, which is built on a linguistics similar to natural language processing, it is really now enhancing and converging it. In fact, Gen AI and these foundation models, the large language models, probably will replace the traditional simple practice of NLPs with the Gen AI. Text summarization, text lemmatization, all the other activities that natural language processing were doing before, and you had to basically manually write programs, typically with Python programming. Now it's done by simple chat GPT. It is programming is going to be replaced by prompt. So that's why the emerging field is known as prompt engineering. A very good prompt query into these type of platforms will do all the activities that natural language processing was doing earlier. Hopefully if I understood the question correctly, hopefully I addressed that. Go ahead, Brooke.
Okay, the next one is moving generative AI to edge devices puts it directly into the hands of end users. Can this start a new generation of development, and will this create non-proprietary applications?
That's actually a very good question. And if you look at who would benefit from this and that, the company that's behind this generative AI at the edge is Apple. Apple has over 1 billion smart devices in consumers' hands. They're a little bit late in the game of generative AI. They're actually, have not even announced if they have their own LLM foundation model, as Google has Gemini and Meta has Llama. But they're realizing that for them, the future is on pushing these artificial intelligence agents to the edge, put enough computing power at the edge to do a basic artificial intelligence based activities at the edge, collect them, and then enhance them at that. So it's going to be a big project for them, which rumor has it that based on various VC forums that I have attended, that by end of this year, they're going to make an announcement about that. And when that happens, as it was the questioner alluded to, we're going to see actually shift in market, because if with the number of devices they have, that takes off, Gen AI at the edge takes off, others who are mostly focusing on proprietary centralized or cloud-based version of it may have to catch up with this concept of Gen AI at the edge. We are in the very, very early stages of these exciting developments. Stay tuned.
Wonderful. I'm going to take one more. Where do you see education going in the future with AI, and will there still be classrooms and teachers?
That's an excellent questions. And these are the questions that myself, my colleagues, actually in about 2 weeks' time, as part of our professional developer faculty, we're doing a workshop for our own faculty about the role and utility of AI in higher education. How do you harness AI education? Education needs to go through, innovation. Our first reaction of educational institutions and educators when Gen AI came out was panic, and they thought every student is going to use it to cheat and do all their work. I'm a person that believes that we have to embrace AI to really change how we do our pedagogical approaches to teaching, how we view learning, and how we view assessment. But right now, most educators and most academic institutions, and including from early, let's say from K-12 as well as higher education, are way behind. They're still in a very legacy mode of teaching, learning, and assessment. And absolutely, if any space needs innovation, is education. Hopefully, we'll have more of this conversation focus on, because that's the role of Golden University in education, higher education, and focus on the role and utility and promise and perils of AI for education through our colleagues at the Advancement Office.
Stan wants to know, will our electricity infrastructure keep up with the demands of AI development and implementation?
That's an excellent question as well. I mean, as the questioner is alluding to, generative AI uses extensive energy. It actually is probably one of the real risk of it, I did not mention here due to lack of time, is if they use continuous as predicted, it will consume significant energy. Same thing happened, by the way, in bit mining for cryptocurrency, if the individual or others are following the digital currency trends. One of the promises happening to possibly create another revolution, the computing resources behind Gen AI, is the concept of quantum computing. So we're going to see actually AI, and particularly Gen AI, and the need for these new type of graphic processing units to revolutionize or possibly innovate our computing as we know it. And hopefully by this, maybe you find a different energy requirement for these new way of computing. But based on current technology method, yes, that increase of energy requirements for these very advanced generative AI calculations will just gonna explode.
The last one, I don't want to skip over Tom's because he asked this a little while ago. You did kind of touch on it, but if you just want to give us another brief touch on this, because this goes into the perils and ethics. What about how LLMs, so large language models, were created using data that companies did not properly and professionally request to use?
Well, that's a big conversation in terms of what data, what content has gone into these large language models or foundational models. And in fact, one of the ethical consideration these days should be that if someone or company or startup comes up with a new LLM, we should know what has gone into that LLM, both from public data, a lot of claim it's public data and synthetic data for that matter. But because there's no supervision over what is going into these LLMs, that the question is that what information has gone into them? Because if they are only being offered, presented to the rest of us public as a black box, we will never know what's inside that black box, what data has gone. Good example are social media. Social media in US are using our private information to create content. We kind of unfortunately saw some example during the last election. One of my biggest concern right now is that during this coming election, we're going to see a lot more Gen AI created videos, podcasts, audios, not knowing exactly what has gone into these large language models and with what authorization, who has consented to it, and whether they're factual or not. So there is that risk, as whoever asked that question alluded to.
Thank you. For anybody that didn't get an opportunity to ask questions, maybe nothing came up during the presentation, but you might think of something after, we will send out a survey so that you have that opportunity to ask Dr. Zadeh any questions after
And
this.
please share my contact information. My email is szadeh@ggu.edu. I'll be more than happy to have this continued conversation. I think this is conversation that we're just starting to have. And this discourse needs to continue across all layers of society. We need more knowledgeable and more informed citizens for better deployment of AI.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'll let you close us out. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation, Dr. Zadeh. We really enjoyed the presentation on tonight. We can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us. And I'll say the same thing to our Golden Gate University alumni, friends, and supporters. We know that there are a million places that you could be, but you chose to be with us on tonight to hear this amazing, innovative webinar. So we thank you for taking the time to spend with us here. We hope as we conclude, we hope that you will carry forward the spirit of innovation. So let us stay connected, let us stay continued in this dialogue, and as well drive positive change using AI models and instruments to make a difference and a positive impact in our fields. I thank you again to the team that put this amazing webinar together. Pamela Cottrell and Brooke Wally, could not do this without you. Again, Dr. Zadeh, we thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You all have a wonderful evening and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.